A little bit of background. As Denise said, I'm a domestic violence survivor. It's actually what led me to boxing. I was 17 years old. I found myself in a relationship with an older man. He was about 6 years older than me, and I thought he was my best friend. And what I thought was love, for a year, he was my best friend. I mean, I'm a Yankee fan. Dodger and Angel fans don't hate me. Die hard. We would go to Yankee games together. We went to everything. We did everything together, and he really was my best friend. Family vacations, everything. And then from there, the verbal abuse started. You know, the calling me names, and I was playing around. Oh, stop being a bitch, or oh, stop. And I thought, oh, okay, I dealt with it. And I kept dealing with it. And then later on, it got worse. I had been told by people in the neighborhood, oh, he's on steroids, he's on steroids. I said, no, he's not. I know him, he's in the gym 4 hours a day. Well, little did I know that if you're gonna do steroids, you have to be in the gym 4 hours a day, because otherwise you won't get big and muscular. And I defended him because I believed in him and I trusted him. And I found the steroids in the trunk of his car. I took him out. He actually sent me to his car to get something out of the trunk. And I went in, I reached into the shoe, I pulled out a bag. I went into the house and I threw it down. And I said, that's what I think it is, please take me home. At this point, I was 18 years old. He took me home, and as we're driving, he kept yelling at me, and I just kept looking out the window and ignoring him, and he kept screaming at me, and it's not mine, it's this one's, it's that one's, and I can see it in my head to this day. And I remember just ignoring him, and I remember him pulling over. And he grabbed me by my throat and put me between the console, the two seats, and I remember him strangling me and saying, die, die. And I felt the blood. I was losing oxygen to my brain because I started seeing the colors, and that's what that meant. I didn't know that. And I said in my head, I'll never forget this, God, if it's my time, take me. I pray that none of you have ever or will ever have your hands, your life in somebody else's hands. I get the chills to this day because that moment will never leave me. But what I did with it is what I'm here to talk about. I ended up going home, and I fell out of the car. He drove somewhere, and I passed out, fell out of the car. I remember coming to, and I went to my house. I went running home because I was completely out of it. I was like, oh my gosh, like what just happened? I went running home. And who do I find sitting on my stairs crying? Him. And what do? I cradle him. Now understand something with domestic violence victims. It really is a disease. We're in a cycle. It's very difficult, and I hurt for those women that are in it, but I hid it. My dad's a retired NYPD detective. You know, my parents are married. I never saw my father put his hands on my mother. I come from a healthy, somewhat healthy family, whatever you consider healthy is these days. But I never saw that kind of violence in my home. I never saw that. My father never spoke to my mother like that. So it doesn't matter. It's not gender specific. It's not, a certain ethnicity, a certain demographic, a financial, nothing, economic. It happens to everybody. So what I did, I cradled him. Well, it took me a while. I ended up getting punched in the face, 8 stitches above my eyebrow, till I decided, oh, I have the answer. I need to go to the gym to better myself for him, because if I look better, he'll accept me, and he'll want me, and he won't hit me anymore. So I went to the gym to better myself. I developed an eating disorder of anorexia, and I stopped eating because I thought I was too fat. And when I was in the gym, by the grace of God, I walked into the back, and there was a boxing ring. And I went back there, and I said, wow, what is this? The only fight I had ever seen in my entire life was when Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear. Yeah, that's a little weird, but I was like, man, I think I know what this is, and I just stood there, and I think everybody has a fighter in them. We all have it in us. It's just finding out how to use them or how to get it out of us. And so when I went back there, I remember a trainer, Willie Soto, who I still speak to today because that man saved my life. He came up to me and he said, do you want to try? And I said, well, yeah, all men. What I had to connect with those men was that I'm half Mexican, so I speak fluent Spanish. So I went back there and I said, okay, well, I can speak Spanish, so how can I connect with them? So I kind of connected, and they were nice to me, but they were like, oh, she's just the girl. So what I did, I kept training, kept coming back and coming back. That led me down the road that I'm on right now. I know that I'm on a time limit, otherwise I could sit here and tell you stories forever. But so where I got to, I mean, working with Hillary Swank, $1 Million Baby, preparation meeting opportunity, fighting through all of these things. Being in that gym, training around these men, I had guys try to pick me up, handing me their numbers. I had no interest. I finally was able to build up the strength and the courage to get out of that relationship with the help of my current manager, who ended up becoming my first trainer to lead me to compete. Because I remember I was in that gym and nobody was really taking me seriously. I didn't look like a fighter. I'm like, what does that mean? Do you know what's inside of me? Do you have any idea what I'm going through? Like, I'm a fighter, but I didn't look like it. So I left, and I remember one of the fighters there, he became a friend of mine. He was a pro fighter, Louis Rosado, and he drove me around to different gyms. And I had one trainer, I went to the gym and I knocked on the door, and I was dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, and I said, hi, I'm here to check out the boxing gym, I'd like to train. He goes, yeah, you don't look like a fighter, I don't think we have anything for you here. His name's Jim Borzell, and he ended up matchmaking one of my first professional fights on Madison Square Garden. Now, it's about not giving up, okay? That was that one incident. So then I had to go to another gym. This one guy told me that I had already been in the ring sparring and getting hit. This one guy told me, oh, well, you can't train here. You got to train on the floor. You got to hit the heavy bag for a year. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, so I had to find another gym. Finally, Louis and I'll never forget this. We pulled up to this one gym, and I told him, I said, I don't have it in me. I'm tired. I don't even care anymore. Like, I was ready right there to give up. And he went inside, and he came back out, and he goes, here, I got this guy's card. He said he knows you. I'm like, how does he know me? I didn't think anybody knew me. And he goes, he said to call him. So I went home. Back then, I'm going to date myself too, we had AOL, and I'm sure some of you in here can remember the dial-up modems where it's like, eh. So I got onto AOL, and I said, let me look at my friends list. Let me look him up. Maybe he's online. Sure enough, he was online. I sent him a message, and I told him who I was. He said, yeah, I was expecting you to message me. When would you like to start? And I thought this was all nonsense. I didn't think it was real. And I said, well, I'd like to start, as soon as possible, tomorrow. He said, okay. I'll never forget this moment. I walked into the gym, and I remember having my duffel bag with me. He was standing in the corner. I remember what he was wearing. He was wearing blue sweatpants and a gray Champion hoodie. He had a cup of coffee in his hand. He turned around, and he said, Maureen. I said, yeah, and I knew I was home. That man has been in my life now since I was 21 years old. I'm not going to really date myself, but let's just say 17 years. And he's still here. He was actually a nurse shell detective, and he ended up finding out that I was in an abusive relationship and helped me to get out of that abusive relationship because I told him. I was actually living in a hotel at that point, trying to hide. My parents, they didn't know what to do, and I thought it was me. I thought it was all me. So I left home, and I was living in a hotel, and I was training. I was always trying to find a way because that fighter in me would not give up. And I just knew boxing was going to help me. I was going to be able to do it through boxing. But everything that boxing threw at me, it was like nonstop, constant. And I felt like, okay, do I give up? Do I quit? There's so many tests. We all get tested. To this day, I get tested. And it was funny when Carol was speaking up here that boxing is exactly like the Hollywood industry. I mean, man, I walk into gyms all the time. I'm right now currently training at one of the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, Vasily Lomachenko, his gym, with a bunch of Ukrainians, Russians, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. I'm the only female. Not only do they not speak English, but I'm right there with them. And I say, they look at me like I'm the foreign farm animal. That's what I tell me. Because literally, they look at me like, and I know, but you know what? There's that chip on my shoulder. It could be a good chip, and sometimes it could be a bad chip. But it's got me in that gym, and I'm like, man, I may not be able to lift as heavy as them. I may not be able to punch as hard as them. But man, can I work as hard as them? I can outwork them. So that's what I'd always done. I was like, I'm just going to be the hardest worker in the room. Just always be the hardest worker in the room. But what I learned throughout my life is that it's got to be for me. Boxing stopped being about that abusive relationship, stopped being about him. I wasn't in the gym anymore to prove myself to somebody. My dad told me when he found out that I was boxing, in this house, you have to work and go to school. You can't do all three. I did. I went to college. I got my degree. I was actually kicked out of high school, so I was the kid that wasn't going to end up doing anything. But I found my way, but it was my way. My dad would always sing Frank Sinatra, I did it my way. He said, that's you, Maureen, 100%. But you know what? I'm glad I did it my way because I found my truth. And that's one thing that I think is so important for women, is to find our truth and not do it because society says so, or this person's doing it and they're successful in an area that you want to be successful in. I deal with that currently. There's women out there that they get more, just because I have 2 world titles and 4 belts, I'm 26-2 with 12 knockouts, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything. There's other women out there that have these opportunities, maybe because their truth is a little bit different than mine. Let's just say it that way. And I'm not going to conform to what their truth is because I know mine, and I refuse to be moved from where I know I'm supposed to stand. But I didn't just all of a sudden, I wasn't born like this. I had to work for it. And I welcome challenges. I remember my manager, Luigi is his name, and he said to me, find joy in the struggle. I'm like, what? Like, I thought he was crazy. I'm like, find joy in the struggle, every minute of it. The training, it's ruthless. It's very hard. I mean, if I walked you through a training day of mine, it's pretty much 5 hours a day of training. But no, it's 24 hours a day because of my eating, my diet, my meals, everything. But I said, I don't want it to be because I'm a woman that I couldn't do something. So I'm going to make sure that I don't cut any corners. I'm going to make sure that I do everything accordingly. So I became so obsessive with doing everything right that I'm like, all right, at least I know I did my part. Everything else, that's in God's hands. I just got to continue walking my path and staying true to who I am. So we're talking, I mean, I love when I speak to young girls, and even I speak to men as well, because everybody goes through this. Owning your truth as a human being, that's the first and foremost, most important thing. And the self-respect. That's one thing that I've learned, because I didn't respect myself. And that was my issue. I took a hold of that, and I gave my power away. I'm not saying that I deserve to be abused, no, but I gave him something. But guess what? Because I believe if you give something away, you can take it back. And I took it back, and I do what I want with my truth, because that's mine. Nobody can take that from me unless I give it to them. And that's what I did. I let this abusive person think. I said, here, oh, here's my truth. I deserve to be hit. Not true, took it back. Oh, here's my truth. I don't deserve to be promoted like this, or I don't deserve to be on this card unless I do this. Nope, that's not my truth. Take it back. Know your truth. I literally daily do daily just activities of just writing things down about myself that I'm discovering. I sometimes do videos of myself, and even when I'm going through a hard time, I recently did when I was going through a struggle, and I saw myself cry for the first time on camera. I've never seen myself cry. But it was, for me, that was therapeutic, looking at myself and saying, you know what you want, you know who you are, because it's daily. It doesn't just go away. And when I speak to the young girls, they're like, oh man, you've done this, you've done that. You know, sure, I've gotten in the ring. I fought in front of millions of people on pay-per-view, on TV, and sure, that does help my confidence. And I'm like, man, how do you speak in front of so many people? I've been in a ring. I've been punched in the face in front of thousands of people. And selfies, anybody want to take a selfie? I'm going to approve every picture, because there's selfies of me or pictures of me on Google Images that are not the prettiest. But it's okay. It's okay. I'm okay with that, because I know who I am. That picture doesn't define me. That picture doesn't define me. I define me. And it's owning that, owning your definition of you, but discovering what it is. And you're going to discover, to the young girls in here, I love being able to speak to you girls, because you have the world in the palm of your hands right now. You guys can do anything. You're going to discover things about yourself you never even knew. And it just gets better and better and better as long as you keep true to who you are in your discoveries. Don't let anybody define you. You define you. And as long as you remember that, you stay close to people that are similar minds, and then you help influence those that you see that aren't. Always give back. Don't look at people. That's one thing that I never did in boxing, was look at somebody else. I was never welcomed in a gym, so you know what? I welcomed everybody. Whenever I was in another gym with females where they're training in Brooklyn, and I remember when any woman would come in, hi, how are you? What's your name? Because I remember what it felt like to not have that. Give that back, because that's what helps bring women together, to be able to stand up and speak about the problems of today. Thank you.
Okay. I just don't even know what to say. I would never want to fight you.
I'm a lover, not a fighter. Only in the ring.